Hello you wonderful people, I'm Amy or AWayfaringFrog and welcome back to another Sims 4 speed build. Today we are doing the final little townhouse in our Pastel Townhouse series, and this is the green townhouse. And I received some great inspiration from everyone in the comments saying that we should try and do something very plant related, and in particular having it more for an elderly couple. So I actually only have one bedroom in this particular townhouse. You can now see all of the details of the lot in the description down below, and that goes for all of the other videos too. So be sure to check those out if you haven't already. And so I ended up creating more of a greenhouse space because there's technically sort of 3 bedrooms, but I made one of them into more of a greenhouse and the other one is kind of an office guest room. So I end up using the tiny living little Murphy bed, so you could have guests over there if you wanted, but otherwise it was just more usable for the Sims who would be living here. And we are starting in the kitchen, which is where I've started in all of them, and it's the same kind of kitchen floor plan, just because, again, for continuity and realism, it just felt like all of the townhouses would be built in exactly the same way, so nothing's changed there, but I have updated the swatches to all be green, and I stuck with these Home Chef Hustle counters because I just think they're a really nice pastel green colour and I love them. So I combined that with quite a few more rustic-y items too. Since I was imagining an older couple would live here, I just felt like more rustic, kind of maybe vintage items to go in alongside the whole build would make sense. So it's kind of a bit of a mismatch between the very modern counters here, and there's some more modern aspects throughout, but I quite liked that as well, as if they'd collected various furniture pieces and ornaments throughout the years and then kind of pulled them all together in their townhouse when they moved in here. And as I mentioned, it's going to be very plant focused. You can see that I am not holding back. I've already used a lot of particularly the Blooming Rooms kit because that came with those cool little curtainy items, which are just some leaves flowing down the sides of the windows, and I thought that was really pretty. And for a living space, it feels like the ability to be able to close your curtains isn't as necessary because it's a living space, you're probably not going to go to sleep there, you don't need it to be pitch black, so I thought it worked well in this room. And then the clutter on the countertops in the kitchen, I brought a lot of the country kitchen kit in here because, again, it's got so many lovely pastel swatches, so I thought all of these little items were a lot of fun. And I also added a few more usable items for your Sims, so the functional kettle, which comes from For Rent, and then there's also the little hot chocolate maker, which has this lovely green swatch, which is just on the left underneath the little picture and these shelves that I'm decorating at the moment. I just really had so much fun with this one, and it's probably one of the houses that I've been the most efficient with decorating. I get so much decision paralysis and I'm very forgetful, so I feel like remembering where each of the individual items are within the catalogue, it just doesn't stick in my head. But for this one, I was pretty quick. Probably partly because if I ever needed an ornament or something, I just immediately went to the plant section. So in that sense, it was kind of like a restricted build. As pretty much always though, my speed build for this is not a limited pack build by any means. Plus, because it's a townhouse using the For Rent feature, the other townhouses will also show up in the items used category if you did want to download it from the Sims 4 gallery. And the whole build is now available, so you can grab it there if you wanted to. So I hope you enjoy. It is very expensive, but it is 4 houses, so I'm kind of not surprised. I think it came out around 300,000 simoleons or something ridiculous like that. So if you wanted to be a landlord for it, that's you're gonna need to save up. But having 4 separate townhouses, which are 3 stories tall, I feel like that's reasonable for a price. So hopefully that's not too much of a problem, but I did have a lot of fun creating these, and I'm really excited for my next mini-series, which was kind of inspired by this as well, where, if you haven't seen already, I've started making little fairy-themed cottages, and the idea is that they would be themed off seasons. So I've already done the spring one, and it's very pastel, so very in keeping with this series, but I am planning to do the summer one soon, and I'll probably do the fall or autumn and winter builds before the actual seasons in the Northern Hemisphere come along, because I just really like the idea of making the tiny cottages. I don't want to have to wait until the end of the year. So I hope you enjoyed that. Be sure to check it out. I can link that down below as well in case you're interested. And of course, as I mentioned, the other townhouse builds will all be linked in the description too. But in my attempt to make all of the layouts of the houses a little bit different, just keeping the kitchens and anything more integral to the space in the same place, I have used a round table in this particular dining area, and a bit like the pink house and also the yellow house, I wanted to have a dining area next to the kitchen, and then downstairs is the living space. Whereas with the blue build, because that was for an artist, the living space all was it on this one floor that we're decorating right now for the greenhouse, and then there was an artist studio in the basement. But speaking of which, we are now in the basement, or the first floor, whichever you'd prefer to call it. And I'm just using some of these really lovely sofas from the Book Nook kit. Still one of my favourite kits, and I love this colour so much, and these sofas look really comfy. I feel like a lot of the sofas in The Sims 4 look really uncomfortable to sit on. Like, they're too pointy a lot of the time, or there isn't a cushiony back to it, it's just a piece of wood. And I really can't imagine wanting to sit on that. Like, sitting up in bed to, say, read a book, that's never been my thing. I feel like it's so uncomfortable to sit up in a bed because you've just got the headboard and it's not ergonomic. I don't like it. So this sofa looks perfect. I would love it. In this living space as well, I made sure to use these little side tables from the Pastel Pop kit. I love this green swatch. I think it's so pretty. And the tile just felt really in keeping with the kind of greenhouse gardener vibe that I was going for. So I did use those. I thought that was really fun. And I used the frame TV from that winter event that took place at the end of 2024. That came in a nice swatch that kind of matched the vibes as well. It's kind of a bit more minty than green, but mint, I feel, is a shade of green, so hopefully that's fine with you as well. I think it's the nicest pastel version of green. And then I just added a few little pieces of artwork here and there. I do switch a few of them around because I was really undecided. Kind of realised while I was doing this that there's not a lot of green artwork. And in this little nook as well, just down by the bottom of the stairs, I included these little bookshelves which are from Growing Together. You'll also see that the downstairs bathroom has been decorated because it's basically a carbon copy of the other bathrooms, since, as I've already mentioned, I kind of wanted all of the fixtures to be the same, since that felt more realistic. I just didn't think it was worth watching me decorate the same bathroom again, when I mostly just picked it up, copied it, and then pasted it there before I changed all of the colours, so there wasn't really much to watch in terms of a speed build. At the point of decorating this as well, the sleek bathroom kit from Cibulet was also released, so I used that quite a lot as well because that comes in some really lovely green swatches too. So you'll see that little hamper, which isn't functional, it doesn't combine with laundry day in that way, which I'm actually thankful for. And then a few of the other items that I did put in the bathroom, they're from the sleek bathroom kit. I did jump around a little bit in this build, as you can see, but we're back in the living area now to clutter it up a bit more. I was just kind of trying to lay out where I wanted everything. And the fact that there's a tree on concrete in the back garden, just ignore that. I fix that a bit later when I go out and decorate the area. I knew I wanted a tree in the gardener's house, or the greenhouse, so that's why I put that there. And I do landscape a bit later on. Since there isn't really any landscaping in these townhouse builds because I built the whole thing in the yellow build, I did end up actually showing the landscaping for this one since it's a bit different to the other townhouses anyway, and it's been a few videos since you saw landscaping if you're keeping up with this series, so I figured I'd include a bit of that as well, but it's basically a repeat of what's at the front of the lot for this green build. So you'll see that shortly. I think I go out and do the garden once I finish just cluttering up this living space. And because I was imagining kind of a more elderly couple living here, I wanted to include some more sort of leaning towards elderly items. So I put in the cross-stitch kit. And before you say anything, I know young people can cross-stitch too. I cross-stitch. I love crafts, but it does feel like a very stereotypical older person thing to do. So I included that, and I also added in the little notebook thing from Life and Death where your Sims can write their bucket list and such, so that felt like kind of an interesting thing to include. But we are now in the other room on the ground floor, and we are just decorating this as that little greenhouse I mentioned. I didn't want to create another greenhouse out in the back garden because this lot was already quite full of building, and I wanted to make sure they had a nice big garden. So I felt like having it inside kind of made sense, and I also added the little fan from the Greenhouse Haven kit onto the front of this as well. So it felt kind of a little bit realistic, like they put that in. Probably needed permission from the landlord, but I think it looks cute. It is a bit unfortunate though that this entire room is very not functional, because I really wish that little tiny, it looks like a flower arranging table, that one tile square thing that's just to the left of the room, that's not functional despite it looking like you should be able to arrange flowers there. I do include a flower arranging table in the back garden, but sadly it was just a bit too big to fit in here and it doesn't really have the right swatches. I really wish they'd just update that kit and make that particular item functional if you have seasons. I think that's why they didn't though. It seems like if they're going to include an item within a kit, it's only functional if it's a base game feature. So like with the woodworking table from the Artist Studio kit. But it's such a shame. I don't really know much about game development, so I don't know how difficult it is to incorporate that kind of an update for cross-pack compatibility, but I really wish that they would do it. All of these big items that you need to be able to achieve certain things, like making flower arrangements or doing pottery, the fact that there's only one style of each of those pieces is just really restrictive when you're trying to build, so it would be nice to have more options. So I'm still praying that one day they do update that to make it an actual functional flower arranging table, but I have a feeling that will never happen, sadly. But we have pretty much finished decorating the greenhouse portion now. I do end up having to remove a few of the little planter pots that I put around when I playtest. I kind of playtest halfway through, so you'll see at some point there's suddenly flowers or like shrubbery sprouting out of all of these little plant pots I've been adding around. And that's just because some of them the Sims couldn't access for whatever reason, so it was just easier to get rid of them. There's still plenty of plant pots, and it does mean that the build on the gallery does come fully decked out with all of the flower types and things, so you don't need to plant them if you did want to play in this build. We are now decorating the garden though, and as you can see I've started landscaping a few more little planter areas, so there's a lot more lush greenery in here than in comparison to the other townhouses. The yellow townhouse is the only other one that actually has quite a big garden, because green and yellow are on the end lots of the townhouses, so lucky them. But as a result, the other gardens are just a little bit sparse in comparison, but because this one was for a gardener, I just really was super keen to make sure there was loads of greenery, so it looked like it was where a gardener might live. Most of the plants that I used were either base game or from the Romantic Garden stuff pack, but then there's a couple. They're from the Love Struck debug menu. So these kind of like almost pom-pom shaped round plants, they're from Love Struck. So that's where I got those from. They're not in the normal catalogue. I'll never understand why they do that. I know that they added the cheats in for us to be able to access debug, which is fantastic, but why can't we just access, or why can't they just add certain plants into the normal menu? I just don't fully understand why we can't have normal access to them, because it's really sad that a lot of people who don't really use cheats or don't build very often, they'd have no idea that they're there. But anyway, we are now just adding a bit more structure to the garden as well by using these little trellises from high school years. I thought it would make a nice divide between the little back door and then one of the planter areas. So I go ahead and add that in, as well as loads of little plant pots around, so you can have tons of flowers to be able to do your flower decorating if you did want to live here. I also got really excited about the gnomes, so I do go ahead and add a load of gnomes in later. But first of all, I just wanted to include a space for your Sims to sit outside. So I grabbed a base game table and then these backyard stuffed chairs, which came in some really lovely pastel green swatches. A bit more lime green than the kind of sage or minty green that I've had going on in most of the build, but I thought it worked outside since there wasn't a lot of mint green going on anyway, so there wasn't really anything for it to clash with. And now I am just adding in those gnomes. As I mentioned though, I do playtest this build and realised that I think some of the gnomes intersect too much with the pots, and there's other similar issues, so I do get rid of and rearrange a few of those off camera. I also really liked the entrance to the garden. I put this little archway, which is from Cottage Living, and it is, again, functional because I did play test it, I promise. And it's so pretty. It's one of the wedding arches. So your Sims, I think, could technically get married there. I'm not gonna lie, I didn't play test for that aspect of it. I just play tested that your Sims could still walk through the fence or through the gate into the back garden. But I just thought it was a really cute feature. And I also used the little glass floor items from Island Living at the top of where the back door is. So there's just like a little ceiling portion. So I put some glass panels there because it felt kind of greenhousey and matched the vibe that I was going for. But now we are back inside decorating the top floor of the build. So I started in the bathroom here, and as with the downstairs bathroom, I just copied it from one of the previous townhouses and then started updating the swatches. So there's not much going on in there because the layout is just like the other ones, so that they all kind of felt continuous and made sense. And then because the sleek bathroom kit had come out so recently, before I started decorating this, I did end up using some of that in this hallway as well. I do end up getting rid of the top shelves, but I really like this little kind of thin panel that goes on the floor against walls. I think it's just such a cute little sideboard piece. So I did go ahead and use that, and I also created a mini gallery wall on the stair side of this room. I was also really keen to include some of these kind of leaning pictures, but sizing them down meant that they left a horrendously huge shadow, which just looked kind of iffy, so I didn't end up using that, which was kind of a shame. There's always some kind of a Sims bug that loves to get in the way of your creativity and building. But now we are decorating the office and kind of guest room space. So the sofa area is the Murphy bed that comes with Tiny Living, so your Sims in live mode can bring that down into a bed. Because it's a double bed, you could have two Sims staying here, but they would have to scooch, and I feel like they don't really do that autonomously. So you might just want to have the one guest stay over. It also means that the rest of the room is kind of inaccessible because the bed would be down, but hopefully not too much of an issue. I just thought it would be nice story-wise for you to have that there, and you could always just jump into your build mode and shove the chair from the desk into your inventory if you wanted to. I did also want to add a few more little activities for your Sims here. So obviously there's the computer and then some little guitars. I felt like it would be nice if one of the two individuals who live here has kind of a music interest. And my dad is actually massively into music. He's got so many guitars and has collected so many over the years. So it's kind of a little nod to that as well, which I thought was a bit fun. And of course, one of them comes in a really lovely green swatch, which matched the color scheme going on here super well. And now just moving into the bedroom, or the master bedroom. So this is the last room of this particular build. And I used the new bed from Businesses and Hobbies. It's so pretty. I think this is my favorite swatch of it. And I combined it with the rug from Life and Death, because that again had lots of kind of pastel green colours going on in it. And then combining this with, again, a bit more rustic looking furniture, so the base game side tables, as well as that horse ranch wardrobe and mirror set. This room just feels really calming and I love it so much. So I hope you agree. I did also bring in that little curtain item from Blooming Rooms very shortly. I kind of created a bit of an overhead bed thing going on against the wall. It'll make sense shortly once I get there. But for now, I'm just bringing in more plants because there's not enough in this build already, obviously. And then, as I mentioned, I'm just grabbing the curtain item to put above the bed to make kind of a feature wall here, because there just isn't that much green, especially pastel green artwork. So I didn't know what to put above the bed. And I thought this was kind of a fun thing instead. I did end up repeating some artwork I've got elsewhere in the house through this little Tiny Living pictures of leaves. So I guess I did use some artwork technically, but it was just more, I didn't want to use too much of that because it felt too repetitive. But at that point, we are coming to the end of the speed build portion of the video, so if you have been enjoying it, please be sure to hit that like button. It really does help the channel. If you haven't already, be sure to subscribe and enable notifications so you'll know when I next upload a video. I upload at the same time every Sunday, and I also upload shorts every Monday at the same time, which is 5 PM, currently British Summer Time, usually Greenwich Mean Time. But thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day, and be sure to let me know what you thought of the build in the comments down below. Looking forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now!